supposed to feel.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's episode of wNS9 Plus, where we bring a special guest onto the show to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm Jim, no DiNardo today, so it's me, it's Tyler, and then from Pirates.com, we've got Alex Stumpf. Alex, thanks for hopping on today during Game 5 of the World Series.
Yeah. I mean, you can't see it. I got the I Love New York hoodie that I got on in New York. So
You're such a tourist.
I am. I went to New York. I got the I Heart New York. I got the I cannot center myself to save my life. I don't know what's going on here.
It's like an earthquake going on.
Yeah, here, give me a second here. But yeah, I got the cowboy hat earlier. Actually, I'm gonna get the cowboy hat right now. We're gonna really just do full tours. I kid.
You can use the cowboy hat for, are you going to the GM meetings in San Antonio? You'll fit right in.
I am not, but I could.
Fit right in. Tyler, how about you? How are you doing today?
Oh, just
I'd give it
a lot lovelier now that Alex is here with us.
Wonderful.
I really want to see that cowboy hat, buddy.
If it's a good show,
We should do that one night. Everybody wear a cowboy hat.
No, we don't need to do that at all. I think
we should.
So I was in Texas all last week, right? And I had a connection. I was flying from Corpus Christi back home, but I had to go through Houston to do it. There's obviously no direct flights from Corpus Christi. And walking through the Houston airport, you'll see more people just unironically wearing cowboy hats and like those huge belt buckles. I'm just like, I don't know how you people do it. I don't know how you could do it. So,
whenever I was in Houston, I had the cowboy hat on, at the game, and I just casually had it on, and I was going out like, okay, I'm gonna go in the stands for a few minutes, and yeah, you're right, Pitt City. And I'm like, wait, before I go, I have to take the cowboy hat off because I will get my ass kicked by a real Texan.
Yeah. Oh man, Bucko Mike's gonna like this one
I'm in
too.
Ohio.
While
I
I
feel
was,
like I can do it.
I have this propensity when I travel that I always lose like one thing. I leave something in the hotel every single time. Usually it's a shirt, but this last trip, it was actually my beard trimmers. So I had to buy new beard trimmers. Never used them before, and I was getting ready for the show. Right. So contrary to what Bucko Mike says, I do trim my beard, but it was my first time using them. I had like no idea what like level I was supposed to do here. And if I put my head up, you'll be able to see I made a mistake. But like right here. It's a mess. But that was the thing I missed this, this past week.
I think we deserve to see a beardless Jim at some point. I've never seen Jim without a beard.
I haven't been beardless. I haven't been beardless since like 7th grade. It's been a while.
I don't want that. I don't want that. That'd be too. I think you'd be like one of the worst of like the memes of whenever the guy shaves a beard and he has no chin, and it's.
It would be bad. Bad.
Yeah.
We're not gonna test it. Yeah.
No.
Alex, it's okay. Me and you have the female audience on lock. We can deal with a beardless Jim.
There we go. Well, it was the thumbnail that we used.
We got it, buddy.
Episode. The thumbnail we used for this episode got it all in. Like got the female audience in.
Yeah, me with a cut on my cut myself shaving, and I have like some shadow, so I obviously didn't do a good job that day. Whatever it was.
All right, let's get into this. Let's get into this. Before we do, I got to read this. But basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline is every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline is odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Alex, I asked you to come on today because, it's been a slow off season so far, if you can even really say it's the off season. The playoffs are still going on. The World Series is still happening, but it's been the off season for the Pirates for basically a month now. Not a lot going on in the world of Pittsburgh Pirates, but for those who don't know, you put out a Pirates Beat newsletter that goes out to everybody's inbox. I recommend subscribing to it. It's got a lot of good stuff. And the one that you sent out yesterday was really just kind of examining the Pirates roster, where it's at right now, who's set to become a free agent, what kind of roster crunch are we looking at as far as maybe positions being a bit full, guys having to be added to the roster because they were on the 60-day IL. And then you also touched on some free agent targets. So figured it was just kind of a good chance to talk about that newsletter, that article. It was pretty good, all encompassing piece about just, hey, what's going to happen these next few weeks. So let's kind of start off with this. Listen, offseason's right around the corner. The Pirates have 5 free agents that we know of, likely going to be 6 with Marco Gonzalez's contract not being picked up. But Andrew McCutchen, Aroldis Chapman, Jalen Beeks, Ryan Borucki, Yasmani Grandal, all set to become free agents. I guess let's start with McCutchen. He's kind of the one where you expect him to be back. He was the team's 3rd best hitter, I think, this past season, if you count qualified bats, 4th best if you want to throw Joey Barton there. Yeah, I feel like he had a pretty good year. And the way that this Pirates offense is right now, I don't think they're in a position to just let good hitters walk away. So I guess just kind of talk about Andrew McCutchen. What do you expect to happen there? Last year, it kind of took a while for them to re-sign him. Should we sort of expect the same thing again? Kind of what are your thoughts there?
I mean, last year there was the Achilles angle with everything, just how he would heal, and I kind of had it like described to me last year. Whenever there was that period, it's like, look, we know it's Andrew McCutchen. We know what he means to this franchise. We also have to recognize this is a 37-year-old DH who's coming off of an Achilles injury. There has to be a lot of vetting that goes through that. I don't see that happening this year. He went through the entire year, and yeah, he did have some, leg injuries. He did have to muscle through the second half of that season, but he still produced, and I think you hit the nail on the head. This team's not in a position to, let go of good hitters right now. So he talked at the end of last year saying how he looks at guys like Stargell and Clemente and how they're, part of the Pirates Mount Rushmore, and they were also Pirates their whole career. He doesn't have that, and you could tell it bothers him that, he's not going to be able to call himself a lifer. But, so he's there. Ben Cherington has said we want him to, we would love to find out a way for him to be a Pirate throughout the rest of his career. There's just so much. This is just going to come together. There is no drama in my mind here. He is going to come back. It's probably going to be on a deal very similar to what he signed for, the past 2 off seasons. That 1.5 seems to really work out well. He's a plus hitter still. He's a great guy in the clubhouse. He's a great guy for fans. I think he's personally on the Mount Rushmore of Pirates all time. He's that 4th guy alongside, Clemente, Stargell, and Wagner. So, yeah, it's no doubt in my mind he's going to come back.
Tyler?
I'm dealing with internet issues over here, if you can't tell.
It's not me this time. It's not me.
No, it's me tonight. It's me tonight. And I heard most of that. And I guess my question would be, where would Andrew McCutchen be right now if he just didn't call Bob Nutting. Is he retired?
No, he would have come back to Pittsburgh. I'm convinced. But maybe it would have been last offseason. Maybe it would have been this offseason as the first time. Maybe he doesn't come back to Pittsburgh last offseason. It's like, yeah, I know it's Andrew McCutchen, but he just had an Achilles injury, and what are we really doing here? So that was a good phone call to make. It was a good phone call for Bob to receive and take in stride. This has just been a very happy, second marriage between the two sides.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I think last offseason the Achilles was definitely an issue. Like, you wanted to make sure that he was healthy, before you committed another year and another roster spot to him. I hear I can understand the argument some people say when you talk about just like the roster construction and the limitations that having Andrew McCutchen on the roster kind of puts on your team. But I also think you don't need Andrew McCutchen to be your everyday DH. Like we saw last year, he got his occasional off day. He usually just didn't play those getaway games. Like he was pretty much a lock to sit all of those games. And that would free up, that DH game for Brian Reynolds, who was able to play a ton of games last year because they were able to utilize that DH spot for Reynolds, at least once a week. So I'm with you. I'm all for they need to bring Kutch back. And if it's the same deal, $5 million, totally worth it. I think maybe he takes a step back in terms of availability. I mean, he had 515 plate appearances this last year. I think if you can get 400 out of him, you're happy with that, especially if he's going to produce anything like he did last season.
Yeah. And I'll stand by it. I mean, for about a month there, he was hitting as well as pretty much anyone in the National League, and they were all just dying on the warning track. So, you could say, okay, he's got to do a little worse next year because, aging curves. I would argue maybe he does a little better, or maybe he just replicates what he did. The skills that he does translate well, being patient in the zone, being able to drive the pitch that you're looking for. A lot of those skills translate for a long time. So, in a perfect world, yeah, he could play the outfield or he could play first base, and he's not just a 37, 38-year-old DH who's going to play 5 times a week. But like you said, this team needs good hitters. He is a good hitter. He's a great clubhouse guy. He's a great Pittsburgher, great dude. It's a no-brainer.
As far as the
on
other
that
free
note,
agents,
and I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Howard.
Oh, sorry. No, and I
ahead.
agree with everything you just said. Can you actually make an argument for not bringing him back? Because I think we will hear some arguments against a full-time DH, and I think those are fair. And
no.
I
mean,
and go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Like you said. I mean, it's Jim brought up how they used Brian Reynolds. They were able to maximize his at bats because he got to DH more. You can, rest guys a little more. That in a perfect world would be the way that you use a DH. And I think that's pretty much the only argument that you could make of why you wouldn't bring back Andrew McCutchen. And candidly, I don't want to hear it. Who cares? It's Kutch.
That's where I'm at. If you can't make this team's going to give 400 at bats to someone awful. They do it every year. Let it be Kutch, even if he sucks. Let it be Andrew McCutchen. Let us see Kutch. It's like DiNardo here. Bring back Kutch. End of story. If he wants to be here, you let him be here. Plain and simple.
He's earned that.
At the end of the day, you don't get that productivity out of anyone for $5 million.
No, unless it's a pre-arb guy. You're not getting
Yeah.
You're not getting that bat on the open market for $5 million typically.
Who's going to hit 20 homers and have pushing 350 OBP?
Yeah, 344.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good, especially in this
328. 328. Sorry.
344 the year before.
344 was Reynolds. I was looking at Reynolds.
Oh, okay.
Year before was 378.
Traded in some OBP for slug.
Yep, he did. As far as the other free agents go, I think one guy sticks out to me as in May, I was like, this dude's gonna ride off in the sunset and become a family man, right? And then all of a sudden, towards the second half of the season, he turns things around and was one of the best hitters on the team the second half, and that's Yasmani Grandal. Is there? I mean, first off, I guess, did he like completely resurrect his career this past season? And if so, is he someone where, like, just with the uncertainty with Davis and Endy, is he someone you even consider bringing back?
To answer the first one, I think he did resurrect his career. Like the White Sox, as we saw this year, not exactly a great playing environment right now. And I think the change in scenery helped. And then he missed all of spring training with the injury. And, he wore it for about 2 months. But like you said, his second half of the season was pretty strong. I would suspect that some team is going to be willing to, roll the dice on him. I mean, does he have his 10 years yet? Is he right on the edge?
He's going to be over 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I still think he's got another year of baseball left in him. He showed that he has that in him. Like the way he finished the season, you don't see 36-year-old catchers, get stronger as the year goes on, but he did. Again, a lot of what he does well as a hitter translates into your late 30s, early 40s. So I think some team should sign him this offseason. Paul Skeens obviously had a really good track record working with him. He showed that he could work with a young pitching staff. Those are great traits to have. That said, I just don't see, where he fits in on this Pirates team, because you've got Joey Bart, you've got Endy Rodriguez coming back. You've got Henry Davis, who I know did not have a good year, but it is way too soon to, close the book on him. You even got Jason DeLay, in Indianapolis, who I think is a fine catcher. If he is your backup catcher, you don't have to worry about that. So, like, they have depth at that position. They've got some quality there. They've got some upside there, depending on, how Rodriguez and Bart and Davis pan out. I just don't see how Yaz fits into this team for 2025. He contributed in 2024. This team was better because he was on it, but there just really isn't a spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Moneyball reference, like, they've squeezed the last bit of baseball you can get out of Yasmani Grandal. I don't think we need to see much more. Alex brought up, like, every other catcher that they can possibly go with. It's just not a fit next year, and I don't want to see him play first base.
No. A lot of his value is because he's a catcher. You take away the game playing, you take away the framing. Yeah, he's not a major leaguer at that point.
Yeah. I like respect what he did the second half of the season, because I thought he was done. Like, I just thought he was done for. I didn't think he was going to make it past June. And he completely turned it around, and he had a good enough year that, yeah, somebody's going to give him a 1-year deal next year. I agree, though. I don't think it should be the Pirates. At some point, you're going to have to let these young kids you're gonna have to hand it over to them. And I mean, I think the catcher position is Bart's, to lose, but you've got enough depth there that I think you just roll with it at this point, because there are other holes that need filled on this team outside of that position. So, all right,
bullpen.
Like the bullpen. Yeah, the bullpen and first base and corner outfield, and yeah, we can go on and on. So you talk next about the roster crunch. The Pirates do have 6 players on the 60-day IL. Those 6 players need to be added. Ben Heller, Dalton Jeffries, Dowry Moretta, Johan Oviedo, Hunter Stratton, Endy Rodriguez. I think there's also an argument to be made that all 6 of those people don't need to be added. So I think when we're looking at that list, I think Moretta, Oviedo, Endy are clear choices. I think Hunter Stratton is somebody too where, as long as he's going to be available to start the year, you bring him back. I think he showed you enough last year that, like, you want him as a depth piece, at least in that bullpen. But like Ben Heller and Dalton Jeffries, I don't see them ever hitting this 40-man roster again. And then, there's you mentioned Isaac Matson. I don't expect him to be around either. But then there's also a lot of other players who we've seen a lot of, and they haven't really shown us a whole lot, who are non-tender candidates, where you don't have to make a decision on them right away because you're losing 6 people, 5 people off the roster due to free agency, so you can add these guys back on. But I don't know. Out of those 6, what are your thoughts? I'm thinking Endy, Stratton, Oviedo, Moretta get added. Jeffries, Heller are gone.
Yeah, Heller, I think, is a pretty clear cut. He's not going to be back. I mean, if you want to bring him back on a non-roster invite deal, you can do that, but he's not going to get a guaranteed roster spot, I think, from anyone this year. Stratton, it's been a while since we got an update, and I don't have the list on me right now, but I don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of next year. Like, the injury he suffered was pretty bad, so I don't know what they're going to do there. I think he is a major league quality reliever, and he's someone who could even be optioned, which, does have its appeal also. Gives you a little bit of flexibility in your bullpen. Not everyone's just, you got to use them or lose them. So I get that mindset, but it's also tough to roster a guy that you took off the roster last year. He had other offers last year too. Like, he had other interest. He could have gone elsewhere, but he wanted to stay with the Pirates. He felt good about the situation here. Does that happen again if you non-tender him? Because he has a major league track record to fall back on, and it was a pretty solid rookie year. So I would personally tender him. I don't know if that's a done deal. The other guy who's kind of on the edge there is Daulton Jeffries, who I get is not the sexiest pitcher in the bunch, but he likes eating innings. He does a pretty good job at that. Obviously, those guys, aren't exactly the rarest type of pitcher in the world, but like, if they want to have this 5-6 type, this pseudo 6-man rotation that they had this year, where like, hey, we gotta just have bullpen guys, you're gonna need a guy like him in there, help eat 3 or 4 innings in there. So he's right on the line too. It's gonna be very interesting. There aren't a whole lot of prospects that they need to add this winter, so I don't think it's going to be that pressing. I think you can kick the can a little bit of how you want to construct this roster. And okay, if we have to DFA a Daulton Jeffries, a Hunter Stratton as someone later, we could do that and use the roster spot that way. There aren't a whole lot of decisions that have to be made now if you just consider, Heller and Matson, not making the team.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are decisions that
Yeah,
can
I'd
wait.
like to hear Jim's opinion on this one too, but I don't need Daulton Jeffries at all. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't need to see him. But at the same time,
Well,
like,
let's do
again,
Jim.
but again, like, I don't think I don't think you need to make that move right now. Like, once you sign someone, once you add someone to the roster, you can do it. You mentioned, like, you don't have to add anybody to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. You already added Billy Cook. You already added Nick York. There's no one else really interesting enough to me to add. You bring up, Gorski as someone who's eligible, Sammy Ciani who's eligible, Omar Alfonso who's eligible. But I don't think any of those guys are on any team's radar, really, when it comes to making a Rule 5 selection. So, you don't have to worry about that part this year. Yeah, I'm with you. I think you can wait on some of these guys.
I mean,
Tyler?
what?
Tyler's internet's so
No,
far
I just
behind.
think you can
Yeah.
find a Daulton Jeffries on any scrap heap ever. So far.
He's a really good dude
I'm
too.
about to punch my
great
computer.
clubhouse guy. That counts for something.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything that, he seems like he's a great guy. But he just hasn't gotten it done on the mound really in years. And didn't last year. So.
That's with the Pirates. No, I get what you're saying here and what Tyler said. He is, if you need a guy who's going to go out there and toss 2 or 3 innings, he's not the only option out there. I hear that.
Yeah. Let's talk about non-tenders. You bring up Jeffries, you bring up Connor Joe as an option. You mentioned Piguero, but I don't think he's there yet. He's going to get another option. So with that fourth option year, he becomes a little bit more like there's no reason to move on from him just yet. Alika Williams, G1 Bay, Joshua Palacios, kind of guys where again you don't have to make decisions on those guys right now. Non-tender, the tender deadline is when?
5 days after the World Series, I believe.
Okay.
It's in the
So
article.
I guess you do need to.
Ethan, I also saw Ethan show up in the comments here. If I'm wrong, he'll call me out.
So I guess you do need to make a decision on that relatively quick. So I guess when it comes to those guys, who are you tendering? Who are you not?
I mean, I brought up Connor Joe, and it's Connor Joe again, great clubhouse guy. We have seen him have extended stretches of being really good, but he's also had extended cold stretches right there. And I kind of look at like, what does he do that Billy Cook doesn't also do? And I think there's just a lot of overlap there. And whenever you have a 40-man roster spot, you got to then entertain, okay, what could he get in a trade? What, do you just cut him and, spend the 2-3 million that he'd get in arbitration elsewhere? It's a tough spot right there, but I just don't know what he really brings to this team that other parts of this team don't already have kind of in place. So Joshua Palacios, he's in that mix. Also G1 Bay. I wrote Piguero, and Piguero, I didn't know about the fourth option until, Ethan. If he has a fourth option, that does change a lot, but he spent most of the year in AAA. And there was, infield time to be won up at the major league level for most of the year, and he just didn't have that great an offensive season in AAA. Really good defense, but you got to hit also to a certain extent. So I don't know what his future holds. Talking, in New York, it does sound like he is part of the plan, going forward. So I might be a little jumping the gun there with the non-tender talk, but before New York, I kind of thought, yeah, he's a non-tender candidate because he just wasn't in the major leagues until like the last week of the season. Maybe not now. If he's got the extra option year, that gives you some options. Alika Williams, I mean, again, what does he do that, Piguero doesn't do? So there's just like there's some spots I feel like that can be opened. And if they were to, like I said earlier, there aren't a lot of prospects to bring back. So you got to be looking for impact major league talent at that point if you're going to be creating a lot of these open spots.
Tyler, what are you thinking?
Well, it took me about 20 seconds there to catch everything, but I don't think Piguero is the guy that you let off the hook here. He's a guy I think you have to hang on to. The depth option, there's still potential there, I think. If you're giving me the decision between Alika Williams and Liover Piguero, I don't think it's a question. Like, Alika Williams, just at this point, is a filler, and I think he's another guy that you can find almost anywhere.
I think you can find glove first middle infielders who can't hit. Like I feel like it's not super uncommon. Now, a lot of those people get jobs though because of the glove. And you look at, kind of where the Pirates are at going into the season, and you're thinking if as the roster stands right now, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is your shortstop, it does make sense to have like a true shortstop on the roster. And whether that's Alika Williams or Liover Piguero, I think you just make a decision between the two of those. And if I'm making the choice, I'm going with the younger guy with a little bit more upside potential, which is Piguero.
Yeah, I would too. But like I said, up into New York, I kind of thought what do you do here with this guy? I mean, this guy was a top prospect for a long time, and he can't crack the major leagues for a whole year. That can't be a good sign. So,
No, it can't be. Well, again, Rule 5 draft. No one necessarily the Pirates need to hang on to there. I don't expect anybody getting picked up. Yeah, I mean, Omar Alfonso is the best prospect who's available, and no one's taking a catcher from high A ball to stick on their major league team. Just not happening.
no. It's not. And I listed Matt Gorski. I listed Sammy Ciani. Gorski's been on the, cusp of a roster spot, Rule 5 draft for a couple years now. Ciani is a former first rounder who, had a little bit of a breakout season, put up some decent numbers in Altoona. But the outfield in particular with this team, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, you've got to find, people that you could just cement in spots right now. Like Oneil Cruz in center field. He's got like 2 months, a month and a half worth of major league experience. And depending on if Brian Reynolds goes into first base, he could be by far the best outfielder on this roster, coming into spring training. Like you look at the Brian De La Cruzes, you look at Jack Sawinski, and then, Billy Cook, who, showed some flashes, and I really loved his defense, but I don't know if you can consider him a major league option, every day at the moment. Nick York, I don't think he could play outfield every day out there. They have a lot of guys who could, but you need studs out there. And with respect to Gorski and Ciani, I just don't see how they move the needle and be like, all right, right field, done. That's taken care of right now. You got to find some way to cement at least one of those corner outfield spots.
Which brings us to our next topic. Potential targets. You were on the point a couple weeks ago. You mentioned kind of Tyler O'Neill as your main guy. I want to spend some time on this too, and I want to really dive in on this because I think a lot of people, and it was mentioned on the point too, right, where realistic options, quote unquote, realistic options, where this is the Pirates we're talking about here. We can't go after the big names, but I guess before we get into that, a lot of this depends on what they're going to do with Brian Reynolds. So that kind of, I've been talking about Brian Reynolds, the first base, for a really long time, but haven't heard any actual person discuss this until September. And it gets just kind of thrust upon us that Reynolds has been talking about this for a few years. They've been discussing it. He's got a first baseman's mitt. He's taken grounders during practice. It's something that they're talking about. How much is there to this? Is this something that can happen? Is this something that's gonna happen?
I mean, he did a lot down there, and there's a certain amount of smoke. And usually whenever there's smoke, there's some fire. They haven't had a formal sit down, hey, you're playing first base next year, at least at the end of the season. He did not leave Pittsburgh with them saying, yeah, you're going to be our first baseman next year. It's something that they did have to, tell him, hey, we have to get some things going, in case this is something that happens going forward. Brian, as Shelton brought up a lot of times, Brian is also likes doing the drills also. So I think that played a bit into this. I don't know. This is one of those, there's a lot of smoke here. I want to see, I'm going to wait, a little bit, winter meetings time, see what really is going to be coming out of this. It makes sense. I mean, just to rip the Band-Aid off, this guy, I believe, was the worst outfielder defensively by outs above average, according to Baseball Savant. He was at the very least bottom 1 or 2%. That's not good. And that is a lot of left field to not get, fly balls at PNC Park. So what do you do here? If you move him to first base, that position that has been a pain in the ass for over a decade, 2 decades, outside
Forever.
of 3 or 4 years of Josh Bell, for about half a year in 2019, Josh Bell, that position has been the biggest platoon. We are going to convert John Jaso. We are going to move Pedro Alvarez over there. You could just end it right there and be done with it for the next 6 years. There's appeal to that. Just to have a primary position. He hits more than enough to play first base. It'd probably be less mileage on him. Probably wouldn't have to, DH him as much, compared to running around and diving in the outfield all the time. So I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense. I can't report that they're doing anything with it right now, though. So yeah, for the moment, I still haven't penciled in as the opening day left fielder, but man, I would personally put him at first. He has no objections, at least publicly, on this either. Like, if he really opposed it, I might feel differently. But he's like, yeah, I like using an infielder's glove. It can be fun. So
that was a great impression.
I didn't go low. I didn't drop low enough for it. I kind of chickened out.
Wow.
I had the cadence.
Infielder's glove. Yeah, infielder's glove's kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm with you. -9 outs above average, -5 defensive runs saved in left field last year. Kind of just fell off a cliff too. It was weird. Like, when he first came up, he was a half decent center fielder. Moved him to left.
Gold Glove nominee.
And he was a pretty good left fielder. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 years, just not there. The arm got better this year, and we saw him, throw out a lot of base runners. And that maybe just a lot of people were trying to take advantage of him, and so he had more opportunities to throw people out. But like, when he had the opportunity to gun people out at second base in particular, he was doing the job well. So it's I think where I'm with you is like the longevity portion. He clearly showed that he's showing the last 2 years that he's declining as far as his outfield defense goes. And I think if you can put him on first base and he can learn the position, he can play it, relatively well. I think all that does too is it amplifies his offensive value. He can kind of focus on that a little bit more. And who knows, maybe he takes another step forward offensively.
Touch real fast with the arm. That was something that he really worked on this past off season, and his arm was stronger, and he got more assists. Like, he earned that. Now, if he really wants to play the outfield, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna do this plan so I can improve my range, so I can do whatever, I'm willing to hear that out. The Pirates should be also. He's too good of a hitter. His bat is going to outlive his defensive prowess as a player. He is going to go to first base eventually. I don't see the appeal whenever you have this team that is so starting pitching driven, that our outfield is going to be a shortstop who is learning the position. The guy who was graded as the worst outfielder in the game last year, and Brian De La Cruz. What does that serve for that starting pitcher? Like, you better strike him out or get a ground ball, because this might be an adventure otherwise. You got to put someone out there. You got to field a good defense if you're going to be so starting pitching heavy.
Tyler, you got anything to add there?
Well, real quick, as in you'll hear me in 20 seconds, but also I think the other thing it does is you remove that platoon split there with him being a switch hitter. You don't have to worry about getting that right-handed bat to play first base. Brian Reynolds just takes care of that every single day at first base. You save the roster spot. I think that's very valuable.
I'm with you. If you're going to find a platoon, it's probably a lot easier to find like a corner outfield platoon that works really well as opposed to a first base one.
I mean, a Jack Sawinski, Brian De La Cruz platoon in right field is you can't give up on either player. You got to roll with them. If you get a real left fielder like a Tyler O'Neill.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to push back on this. Why not?
Okay.
Why can't you give up on them? Because here's the deal, Alex. Like, the Pirates are in a unique spot right now where like they've got to win right now. You can't just you can't just let Jack Sawinski and Brian De La Cruz try to figure it out. You can't go into next season just saying Brian De La Cruz and Jack Sawinski, I know you both sucked ass last year, but you know what? We're going to hand you this right field platoon because we believe in you. Like, this is a team next year, they got to win. And like Ben Cherington also has to win. Like, we're talking about a guy who's probably GMing for his job next year. And like, can you legitimately feel good about yourself throwing those two out there?
I never said I feel good about doing it. I'm saying it's too soon to give up on Jack Sawinski. Kid had an 800 OPS in 2023. This last year was horrible. There is no way to, sugarcoat it. It was about as bad as it could have possibly gone. That said, this guy was a 2-3 WAR player his first 2 years in the major leagues. He's not costing you anything except a roster spot and potential playing time right there. It's too soon to give up on him. Now, Brian De La Cruz, I personally, I've had my fill. I don't really see how he really moves the needle all that much, and if he's really going to be costing that $4 to $5 million that MLB trade rumors is projecting, boy, I have a hard time where Andrew McCutchen's going to be making only a little bit more than Brian De La Cruz after the years that they both had. Like, yeah, they both hit 20 home runs, but what did Kutch provide, on top of that? So,
yeah,
they got to get a real outfielder, or at the very least a first baseman, is kind of be my driving force here. And there really isn't a good first baseman on the free agent market that's a realistic target. I don't see Christian Walker happening. Pete Alonso definitely isn't happening. So what do? Josh Bell is probably the best first baseman free agent on the market in the Pirates range.
I guess here's my thing. If there was ever a time to not act like the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yes. Yeah.
In the history of their entire franchise, going back 130 years and looking forward another 130 years, the time to just say, you know what? I'll worry about, like, we can suck 6 years from now. Like, hell, you know what? Bob Nutting, if you want to go ahead and preset your 2030 payroll to $30 million and just run out an entire roster of pre-arb guys. I would sign up for that right now if it meant, you know what? You've got Paul Skeens on this team. You have to get him into the playoffs so that he can just pitch meaningful games. Like, this is the time where you're like, there is no such thing as an unrealistic option. Like, your job as a general manager at this point is to make the unrealistic realistic. So, like, get creative. Sign somebody to a huge deal. Because guess what? If it doesn't work out, 2028, 2029, you can trade them. Like, I guess this is like, it's where I get so frustrated right now, because they're in a spot right now. They are in a position where if they just operated like a normal team, they could do something special. And if they put their own handcuffs on themselves this offseason, like, what is all this for? What's even the point of having Paul Skeens on this team if you aren't going to surround him with the best possible opportunity?
I'm going to extend this further. I agree with what you said, but it's not just Skeens. It's Keller. It's Jones. It's Ortiz. It's Oviedo coming back. If those 5 guys are your starting rotation opening day, you've got 5 pitchers who are in the top 75 of starting pitchers in baseball, including potentially 1. Like, 5 guys who, at the very worst, are better than the major league average starting pitcher. A lot of them have higher upsides than that. Like, that is what a small market team needs to be successful. The ball is at the 1 yard line. Someone's got to just be a Jerome Bettis and take the ball over the top and get a Tyler O'Neill, trade for a Yandy Diaz, a Naylor, or someone like an impact batter too. fix the bullpen. Like the hard part should be done. Candidly, like the hard part should be done.
Tyler says that all the time. Hard part's done.
This could be legitimately the next 2 or 3 years the greatest Pittsburgh Pirates rotation in the franchise's history, like in terms of talent and depth, what they have. They've got that potential. You can't let that just be an 85 win team or a 76 to 86 win team. You have got to shoot higher. Whatever you have the best of something, the best potential starting pitching, you have got to win division championships. You've got to compete for pennants and World Series. That's what you need to do. The hard part's done. And I agree. This is a very pivotal offseason. This is the offseason that I think they need to really do something that is not Pittsburgh Pirates like, whether that is trading for a Yandy Diaz, which would cost, prospects or major league players, whether it is signing a free agent that is going to be bigger than what the Liriano deal is, the biggest free agent deal, right? 339.
Yeah.
That needs to break. Soon. They have a great opportunity. Tyler O'Neill for 3 years would sure break it and still be reasonable. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on this year. This is such a pivotal year, not just because it's year 6. It's because you have this group of young people that you have been building towards, and they're finally up in the major leagues. You got to maximize what this whole thing's been about.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. It's like you can't just go out there this offseason looking for good value or just, hey, you know what? I think there might be something left in this guy. This guy had a down year, but, I think we can get a little bit more out of him. Like, this isn't the offseason to do that. This is the offseason to go out there and get good baseball players.
I'm not knocking the reclamation projects. It can't just be that, though. It can't just be we got Martin Perez and Rowdy Tellez and Yasmani Grandal, and then we threw in an overpaid Aroldis Chapman, at the very end, like, because we couldn't sign another starting pitcher. You got to swing a little more. I don't think they need to spread the money as far around anymore. Like, what are we talking about here? Bullpen? That could be a couple minor trades. That could be 1 or 2 free agent signings, and it might not even be a guaranteed deal right there. If you really want to believe in Bednar and Holderman, and you get like another leverage arm in that mix too, you could do that. But then if you do that, if the Pirates did nothing but get a quarter outfielder, like a legitimate one, and a couple bullpen arms, I don't think anyone would complain. It'd be like, all right, they've got depth everywhere else. Like, you don't have to spread the money around to, well, we need 2 starting pitchers and then we need a catcher because Endy got hurt, and we need an outfielder and we need another reliever, and it's like the shopping list is 2 or 3 players in my mind. If you get the right 2 or 3 players and you have the 30 or so million that they've spent in free agency, you should be able to get 2 or 3 impact players. $30 or so million being what they spent the last couple of years, not say necessarily we have a target for what they're going to be spending.
Tyler, you got anything there?
I hear them.
I don't know.
I hear the dial-up sound.
I don't know if he's got anything. I think just like, I mean, you mentioned it, and like I said, what I agree with is just like you can't just be the Pirates this offseason. You can't just do normal Pirates things. You've got to go out there and you've got to actually compete with the big boys. And we've been hearing this entire time, Bob Nutting's going to spend when the time's right. Bob Nutting's going to spend when the time's right. Bob Nutting's going to spend when the time's right. Well, he now is the best pitcher in baseball. He's the best pitcher in baseball. He's got the best pitcher the Pirates have ever had in their existence. Like, I mean, that's not even just hyperbole. Like, that is a fact. Paul Skeens is the best pitcher that has ever worn a Pittsburgh Pirates jersey. And you've got him for 5 more years.
Give it 2 or 3 years, and then I'll start hearing that. But he is maybe the most talented.
Yeah. And so like now's the time. Now is the time. There's no waiting. There's no you know what? I think I think if we went out there and we got Willie Castro on a trade, and if we went out there and we acquired we went out there and got Josh Bell, like that's not enough. Like and I'm not here to say the Pirates need to sign Juan Soto. I understand that's not going to happen. But like it should. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like the Pirates should go out there and literally sign Juan Soto. And guess what? If in 5 years from now you haven't won a World Series and everything gets blown up, then you just trade Juan Soto. Like, I guess that's just where I'm at. Like this payroll, if this payroll is under $100 million to start next year, I'm going to lose my mind, Alex. I'm going to lose my mind because like this pay, like 2019, 77 million, 2020 after the COVID stuff, 24, 2021, 50 million, 2022, 61 million. Like, where's all this money at? This money that we haven't been spending for the last 5 years, where is it at? Let's spend it now. Or you know what? Let's get a loan and mortgage the future for right now. Like I said, 2030 we can go in there and just throw in the towel for 2030, be the worst team of all time. I'll sign up for it today. But like, put your money into this team right now, into this offseason. And if something doesn't work out, you can move someone. The Marlins were able to move Giancarlo Stanton whenever they felt like it. The Padres were able to move Juan Soto when they needed to. Like, good players on big deals can just get moved because they're good players and there's other teams who will take them. So I think that's just where I'm at right now. Go out there and get good players. Go out there and spend all your money right now. I don't care if the Pirates have to put together a competent team in 2030 because Paul Skeen's not going to be on the team anymore. Like, do it right now.
Just got to throw this out here. It's February, whatever. I am in my Airbnb in Bradenton, Florida, doing a show about the first impressions from the first 2 or 3 days at Pirate City. We talk about how the Pirates offseason was re-signing Aroldis Chapman, was getting another reliever in the mix, like a good B-tier type guy, and trading for Yandy Diaz. Are you satisfied?
Absolutely not. Tyler?
I don't know. Can't hear you.
All right. So
he is AJ Hawk in this real
Tyler's AJ Hawk. You're right.
I need a cigar right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say, like, absolutely not. I'm not satisfied with that.
Then what is yours? What is yours? Because, I mean...
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. So I think
that is a good intersection of realistic and makes the team better to the point that they should be competing for a division title.
I think you've got to upgrade from IKF as shortstop. Whether that's trading for somebody, or I don't know what's going to happen with Hassan Kim and San Diego, but like, I think you go out there and you get, maybe you don't get Willie Adames, but you get like the next guy. And then you let IKF be the guy who he should be, which is just your super utility man. And I think that's where he's the most valuable. Except Triolo can't hit, Alex. Except for Triolo 2 months at the end of the year. He can hit for 2 months at the end of the year when it doesn't matter because he couldn't hit the first 3 months and the team's already out of it. Like, that's
just tell him every day is like September 6th, next year.
I'm to the point where like you can't go into next season with guys on your roster who are question marks. Like, I don't want many question marks. I want guys on my team who I can rely on next year. And Jared Triolo is someone who I can't rely on come opening day. IKF I can rely on being that super utility guy because he's shown me for the last 6 years or whatever of his career that he can handle that job. He can do it really well. I don't want question marks. I don't want Brian De La Cruz and Jack Sawinski in right field because they're a question mark. And actually, Brian De La Cruz isn't even a question mark to me. I think he just sucks, right? Jack Sawinski, I'm with you. Like, I'm not ready to give up on him, but I'm not ready to give him a roster spot next year. Like, I think they need to go out there. They need to find somebody who can play right field. They need to find somebody who can play left field. Did I just freeze?
You did.
Jesus. Okay. But they need to go out there and they need to find 2 bats. Or, you know what? I'm okay even with just like 2 platoon, like a platoon option in right field. Can you hear me at least?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay with
I'm just hitting the platoon option in right field and it not being Jack Sawinski and Brian De La Cruz.
But like,
I'm not championing, that,
Yeah.
as I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying about the question marks. Wrong organization. There's always going to be question marks around here. Jared Jones was a question mark going into last year. Now he's a period. The kid is a stud. There's no question there right now. You got to give, whenever you're going to be so development and prospect driven, there are always going to be question marks right there. Hayes is a question mark with his back. You got to figure out, what's going to go on there. Can he go through a whole major league season? He feels good about the program that he's, adopted. Can he do it over the course of a full year? You're going to have a question mark in center field. Can O'Neal Cruz do it for a full year? Yeah, he looked good for a month and a half. Can he do it for a full year? You're going to have the question marks anyway. And I hear what you're saying. You don't want to have too many of them, but that's going to have to happen. And that's why I would rather, if I was GM of the Pittsburgh Pirates, I would rather try to land 2, maybe 3 big, air quotes by them, fishes, and have a period. Like, I don't have to worry about left field because I got Tyler O'Neill, or I don't have to worry about first base because I got Yandy Diaz. I would rather do that. And I feel like if you have just a few periods instead of question marks, this could be a good team. Because you got periods and exclamation points a lot through, other parts of it. Paul Skeens is exclamation marks and, bolded and everything. Jared Jones, exclamation mark. Mitch Keller, exclamation mark. Like, there are a lot of guys like that. But you're going to have question marks no matter what.
So I'm good with, if you're going to go with Diaz at first, I'm good with that. If you're going to go with O'Neill in the outfield, I'm good with that. But I still want an upgrade at shortstop. I need a shortstop because IKF, from what I saw last year defensively, not good. Like, he wasn't good. His arm was terrible. It was bad. And like, was it good enough? Sure. But again, we just talked about how, like, this is a pitching heavy team. You need to put good defenders behind them. And I don't think IKF is that, at least not as shortstop right now. I think you put IKF at third base or second base, he's a Gold Glove caliber guy, not shortstop.
I might also just be gaslit after watching a year or two of Tucupita Marcano, Rodolfo Castro, and O'Neal Cruz playing shortstop. That it's like, oh, guy caught the ball. He's pretty good.
I think I got my situation squared away here, but if I'm on time here, but I'm
Go ahead,
with
Tyler.
Jim
Yeah.
that I don't find any use in watching IKF as an everyday shortstop next year. I don't think the glove plays. The arm's not good enough. And truthfully, I don't think the bat's good enough to be an everyday shortstop anymore. Not in 2025 Major League Baseball. We're at the point where you need not a legitimate bat, but you at least need somebody that's going to put together like somewhere near a league average season. And at this point, I don't know if IKF is that guy. I think he was fortunate for half the year. And he regressed like most Pittsburgh Pirates do. There's more value to me with him as just being a utility guy. And I think we're in that boat with a lot of guys on the Pirates. That's the problem.
In a perfect world, yeah, he probably would be someone's utility man, but I don't know. I have no issue if he is your shortstop and 9-hitter for next year.
I have a stronger arm than he does.
You can also take Kyle Hendricks steep. Yeah, you can also take Kyle Hendricks steep.
No, I mean, Busters, I threw 70. Thank you very much.
I'm just I think you've got to upgrade this team. I don't think you can just do a few little things. Like you need to make some big moves, and whether that's on the free agency market, whether that's through a trade, I think they missed a huge opportunity by missing out on Jazz Chisholm this trade deadline. Like I think they missed out enormously. Yes.
Bust Bubba,
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah.
Well, then like again, but that goes back to the Marlins wanted a bat, and the Pirates failed at developing a bat that was good enough for the Marlins to even want. So like it all goes back to just like the Pirates failed. The Pirates failed on acquiring Jazz Chisholm because they didn't have the talent to acquire Jazz Chisholm, unless you wanted to give up your best pitching prospect, who I think is lights out and probably the second best pitcher in the organization right now. Yeah.
I'm not going to fight that.
I really Ha-Seong Kim is a guy who I'm really looking at. I'm looking to see what the Padres do with them. I'm looking to see if they pick up his option.
Padres aren't going to let him walk, man. There really is no one on shortstop. You know, who's the next best shortstop available? Rojas? IKF is a lot better than Rojas.
Well, I mean, the Padres have shortstop. The Padres can just stick Bogarts there if they want. Like, I feel like they've got an opportunity. Like, I think the Padres could, but I also see the Padres tendering. I think the Padres pick up the option, and then maybe they dangle him, for a trade. I don't think they're just gonna let him walk, but I think you gotta do something to upgrade shortstop. You gotta do something to shore up the corner outfield, whether that's keeping Reynolds out there or moving him to first and then getting somebody. But I like Tyler O'Neill. I like I like moving Reynolds to first. And if you're gonna go with the platoon option, then you platoon someone in right field. You go like Winker and somebody in right field potentially. But that's kind of where I'm at. But like you've got to go out there and you've got to add impact talent. And you can't just do it at like one or two positions.
I'm not going to argue. I mean, we're in agreement that you need to add impact talent. That's the most important thing here. They don't need to make depth signings outside of the bullpen, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
And those are, that could be a trade. That could be a waiver wire claim, in some cases, NRI, $1 or $2 million deals. That's not going to take a whole lot.
And I think it's just the fact that it's October 30th and we're just talking about the Pirates. But at the end of the day, I don't care where the position is. This team just needs guys that can hit a baseball. I don't care where they play. Find guys that can hit baseballs and we'll go from there. They don't have enough guys that can do that.
Which is why you keep Andrew McCutchen and you don't talk about how he's a DH only. And
exactly.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we're all on the same page. Like this is the offseason to not do normal Pittsburgh Pirates behavior. It's just a matter of like, how do you go about doing that? And I think you can do it multiple ways. I think you can do it through a trade. I think you can do it through a splash free agent signing, but like payroll needs to expand. And it can't be $95 million. It can't be 100. Like payroll needs to get up. Needs to get up there. Not to like 150 million, but like payroll needs to be 120 to 130 next year. Like plain and simple. Has to be.
That ain't happening, man. Charrington City expects payroll to be increased, but that would represent what, like a $40 million increase from this year?
So it was right at like 87 this year, I think.
Yeah, that ain't done. Yeah, it's not increasing 40 something %.
Well, then the Pirates aren't going to be good next year. Like plain and simple, they're not. If payroll doesn't go up to at least 110, 120, they're not going to be good.
Not unless they get very, very, very creative and find lightning in a bottle somewhere.
Or all these people that they thought were going to take steps forward who didn't. Like unless everything's got to go right. And when was the last time that happened?
2015.
Even then, like they were I think they were in a much better position then, and they didn't have the best pitcher of all time on their team then.
No, but they had an MVP and they had a Cy Young candidate, and
they didn't have Paul Skeens.
I'm to the point. Just take out a loan, pay it back in 2030. Pay it back in 2030 when you have a $30 million payroll.
At least
Trade
get
everybody.
creative somehow.
I mean, trade market's a way to get creative.
It is.
And
But then
I mean,
you got
if
to rely
they-
on other, like the trade market just means it takes two to tango, you know, so it's like.
Oh, I know it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
They also got a whole lot of pitching up for grabs.
They
Maybe
do.
not up for grabs, but available for
Yeah.
the right price. So,
All right. Well, we've been talking Pirates for an hour on October 30th. So I think that's enough. The Dodgers have come back and tied the game, by the way.
they've what?
It's 5-5 in the 6th. So let's get out of here and catch the end of this game 5.
Garrett, no.
Garrett Cole,
What a shame.
5 unearned runs. Aaron Judge
Oh,
and Anthony Volpe with some costly errors.
Hate to see it. What a shame.
what a shame.
What are you gonna do? All right.
Hate to
No,
see it.
thanks for joining us, Alex. I mean, it's always great having you on. And again, if you haven't subscribed to Alex's newsletter, how can they go about doing that?
Anytime I publish a story that's on the Pirate site that was a newsletter, they'll give a link right at the top of how to sign up. So
All right.
most of what I've written this month has been newsletters, so take a shot. You got a pretty
There you
good shot.
Now, definitely sign up for those if you aren't signed up for them. Always good stuff. Follow Alex on Twitter or X, however you want to say it, but it's at
Twitter.
Alex J Stumpf, right?
Yep.
Alex J Stumpf. But yeah, again, thanks for hopping on here. Like the video if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the page. If you want to support us even more, we've got a Patreon. You can become a member. We've got some cool perks for doing that. Links in the description. But yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties tonight. I don't know what was going on with the internet. I think it was like maybe Bob Nutting didn't like how we were talking about spending money, so he was sabotaging us. But
Let the record show that Tyler's resolution went to like 144 during that.
Tyler's on like 8 bits.
Do you think it went to that? Like, I think it went to 0.
All right, guys. We appreciate you all. If you're listening to the podcast afterwards, leave a review. You guys are great. Let's go Bucks. We'll talk to you later.
Peace out, Scouts.
Hey, you all. Thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.